Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk went over a balance hotfix with some nerfs to top-performing gods and items, discussions around playing it too safe with Smite 2, and more radical changes to shake things up, and a whole lot more. The YouTube gods tell me that exactly 50% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. Isn't that crazy? You could be the one to ruin that perfect distribution by subscribing right now. So much power in your very own hands. Okay, enough of that. Let's hit the recap. First up, there's been a balance hotfix released to address some overperforming gods and items and enable Ganesh's aspect. There was also a bug fix for Assault where the bench wasn't checking for healers when you rerolled, which was allowing teams to get multiple healers. That should be fixed now. The Scorpion camp in Conquest has had its base XP reward drastically reduced from 240 to 146. This will probably make the new jungle start where you do Scorpion into red unviable now, and will also slow down how quickly junglers can farm, especially in the early game. Moving into item balance for its hotfix though, first up we have Cersei's Hexstone, which is getting a 150 gold cost increase and a change to its active effect. It is now a 120 second cooldown, up from 80 seconds, but it will stay at 80 if you hit an enemy god with it. This seems like a good change and somewhat similar to what they did with Blink, encouraging aggressive use of the item and making it less good for just escaping from a gank or a dive. Heartseeker's percent max health damage increase from OB12 has been reverted back down to 2.5%. This makes sense given the item was already pretty good and scales from strength, so it got even better when they buffed strength items across the board. Spirit Robe got a fix to stop the healing stacking in certain cases, which is great. This item is already nuts and definitely did not need to be also stacking the heal. Moving on to a few god changes for this hotfix though. First up is Barry, where they have removed the slow from her ultimate entirely. This makes sense, I think, given she's still overperforming despite nerfs, and this ultimate already does so much for her and her team. Respectable damage, immunity to death, and instantly activating a passive. This probably doesn't also need a slow. Umbats 1 is being changed to now always deal 25% damage on leaping and 100% on landing, rather than 100% on the first hit and 25% on the second hit. This should help with bats just 3ing in and jumping away for big damage while being pretty safe. And finally, we have Kali, with Incense losing some strength and intelligence from the buff, which again seems reasonable. Kali is still one of, if not the best jungler in the game, and Incense already does so much with the damage and stun. It doesn't also need to be one of the best steroids in the game, given how well she uses both kinds of scaling. But that's it for the balance hotfix. I imagine we'll see more substantial changes and some buffs in the main OB13 balance notes, but which we'll get to next week. But for now, I think this is pretty good to address some of the key overperformers while we wait on OB13. But let's move into the Q&A section. First up though, Kilgun had a quick note on patch scheduling going forward, as they're going to be changing when patches launch from Monday to Tuesday, which is consistent with Smite 1. This also means that the patch reveal shows will be on Wednesday instead of Monday, which is again consistent with how they did it in Smite 1. Kilgun said there's a couple of reasons for this, one of which is that for them to branch the build on Monday, everything has to be done and ready by Sunday, which caused the team to sometimes have to work weekends to get everything in before the end of Sunday. Now they can finalize everything for a patch on Monday instead. The other reason is that OB13 is likely going to be a very big update with a lot of things they need to get in, and one extra day will make a big difference in terms of finalizing everything for that patch. Chat started asking for spoilers, of course, because it's Titan Talk Twitch chat, and they said they don't want to reveal anything major just yet in case it doesn't make the update, but Kilgun did say that Beach Babe Afro will be coming as a classic skin in the next update. Data mining also suggests that this will have prisms, so it might be a traveler similar to Landshark and Guan Unicorn, but that's unconfirmed. They did say they might do some small teasers for the patch on Monday as well, as things will be more finalized then and they'll have a better idea of what exactly is making the update. But yeah, the full reveal show will be on Wednesday instead of Monday, and they're going to continue that format going forward. Flash tests will also be moved to Wednesday and will go live right after the Titan Talk. Also, the UE 5.5 upgrade should be in this next flash test. Moving into Q&A though, first up, someone asked when Ganesha will get his passive art and kill bestow notification, and as I said, the passive art is being worked on as we speak, and they will pass a note along about the kill bestow notification to the team. Someone also asked if they're aware of Ganesha 2 interrupting CC immune ultimates, and they said they weren't aware of that, but they will definitely pass that along. Someone asked if it's intended that healing and lifesteal don't number sum, and Kilgun said yes, that is intended, as they feel like summing on heals didn't make the game more readable in the same way that it does on damage. Cases like potions felt especially weird, but they could look into maybe putting it on specific abilities where it makes sense, like Afro 3 or whatever. There was a question about if they're aware of the bad frame rates and stuttering at game start, and Kilgun said yes, they are, and it's sort of an endemic issue with a lot of UE5 games, but the upgrade to UE 5.5 should help with this, and they're also planning some other changes on the back end that should improve this for next update. Someone asked for an explanation on why Yogi's necklace was removed from Assault, and Kilgun said it was a combination of strong feedback from players that it wasn't healthy for the mode, and their own data that around 8 out of 10 players in a match bought it, most often first item, and that felt like it was a bit too defining and warped the whole pacing of the mode. They are open to turning it back on if there's overwhelming demand for that from players, but they felt like it was causing more problems than it was worth. Someone asked if the post-game lobby copy to God Builder feature is still being worked on, and Kilgun said he'll bring it up with the team and ask how easy it would be to do. He did also say there's some other post-lobby stuff coming in the next update though. Someone mentioned the profile screen being very laggy laggy, and they said they are aware of that. It's mainly because the screen has grown beyond its means over time and has to load a bunch of different assets like leaderboards, progress bars, ranked information, all that kind of stuff, and it takes a while. They do intend to go back and rework that screen at some point, but it's not a super high priority right now as it's not used all too often compared to other things they could be working on. Someone asked if aspects have caused ported gods to be delayed more, and could they have worked on ported gods faster if aspects were never a thing, and Kilgan said probably not, because often the bottlenecks for how fast they can port gods are FX and art, which aspects generally don't need much of. Aspects are mostly just a design team thing with the very occasional bit of extra FX or sound design. On a related note, someone asked if they could show aspect ability information on the god page, as you currently have to go into jungle practice to see the new abilities, and they definitely said it's on Pon's list, but no ETA. There was a question about god trackers and if we could get some more generic ones like pentakills, wins, win-loss ratio, etc. And Kilgan said they could do that, but he feels like that would just result in everyone running those on every god, and the more unique trackers for each god wouldn't get used. It also might cause some confusion. For example, if you have a pentakill tracker on a god you're playing for the very first time and it says 20 pentakills, people might think you're insane at that god when you've literally never played them. They could solve that by making it so that it's pentas on that specific god, but that still has the issue of everyone will just run these generic trackers on every god instead of the more unique ones for each god individually, which I think makes sense. There might not be space for it, but I think this could work potentially if they had a spot for a generic tracker on your card art that is different to the specific god trackers, but that does still run into the issue of potentially being misleading about your skill on that god. Someone asked if the push for Smite 1 parity in a lot of aspects of Smite 2 has caused them to play it too safe in terms of new features and direction for the game, and Kilgan said that's actually been one of the biggest unexpected hurdles with Smite 2. At the start, they didn't expect as much pushback on things that were different from Smite 1 as they thought they were better, but they quickly found out that even changes that they thought were best for the game were poorly received because it made the game feel different from Smite 1. They feel like the community is pretty divided on this, and there are some that just want Smite 1 remade in a new engine with better graphics, some that want a completely new and different experience, and some in the middle. Kilgan feels like at the start of development they pushed a little too much in the direction of new and exciting changes without focusing on making the game at its core feel like Smite just in terms of playing a match. But now he thinks the game is in a much better spot in that regard and has that Smite feel for the most part, which should allow them to do more exciting and experimental changes and additions going forward that can really make Smite 2 stand out from Smite 1. Someone asked about double worshippers, and as I said, probably for July 4th over that weekend from Thursday through Monday there'll be double worshippers. There was a question about classic skins and if they will all be in Travelers going forward, and Kilgan said that of course the skins are available for direct purchase with legacy gems only once the Traveler leaves, but they expect that most classic skins going forward probably will debut in a Traveler market with prisms, as players seem to like that format. Someone asked if there are any gods that are dramatically different in popularity in Smite 2 compared to Smite 1, and Kilgan said not really any that are dramatically different, but he did say Jingwei is quite a bit less popular in Smite 1 and Yamoja is quite a lot more popular. There was a question about why a lot of the recent and upcoming gods are male and why there's a lack of females, and Kilgan said he won't comment on data mined roadmaps, but just in general there are a lot more gods than goddesses in Smite 1 anyway, so as they're porting them over there just will be more gods. And I imagine there's probably more gods than goddesses in mythology in general just due to the time periods that these myths came about in. When they first launched Smite 2 they also prioritized goddesses disproportionately in the initial lineup, which probably also caused the ratio of gods to goddesses left to port to be even more skewed in the favor of gods, as they already added a lot of the goddesses in the initial wave. He also said that a lot of the most common requests for community gods that they want to see brought over are male, so it's a variety of a lot of factors. And there will always be more gods to port than goddesses, but they aren't making intentional decisions to exclude female additions. It just so happens that there are more gods to port and people tend to want gods more than goddesses when they're asked. Someone asked if they could let us buy an ascension pass for a god in the match lobby, and Kilgan said possibly, he'll look into it. There was a question of if we could have an aspect ban in ranked, and they said potentially. There's a lot to think about in terms of how that would work and how it will be done. Is it before god bans or after? Would it be worth including when you can just ban the god? Would it be in place of a god ban or in addition? Definitely possible, but a lot to think about and how exactly that would work. Someone asked if the team has ever considered a crazy change to Conquest core design, like 4 lanes for example, and Kilgan said that he thinks that generally 3 lanes is just what works. Deadlock for example tried 4 lanes and has recently pivoted back to 3. They are open to more sweeping radical changes to Conquest to make it feel more unique, but 4 lanes is probably not one of those options. And finally, someone asked if there could be a team bank in the fountain that you could put gold in to help players that are behind, and Kilgan said that probably wouldn't work without an insane amount of limitations, because it would just result in stuff like the support funneling gold into the rest of their teammates instead of actually playing the game, or everyone just funneling their farm into the carry so that they have 6 items when everyone else has 2, and it would just result in whoever has the best carry wins the game and make it extremely unfun for everyone else who's not the recipient of that gold. Even in the case where you could set it up in a way that only lets you send gold from ahead players to behind players, that probably wouldn't even be that useful, as typically the best way to win is to play around your fed players that are doing well and hope that your feeding players that are doing badly can hold their ground well enough. Playing around your strongest points and pushing that lead is generally more effective than trying to fix your weak points and losing your lead where you're strong. But that's everything discussed in today's Titan Talk. Don't forget to drop a like before you leave, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.